Starting Parshas Bolok. Vayar Bolok ben Tzipor, Eis Kol Asher Osa Yisrael Amori. Bolok, the son of Tzipor. So all that Yisrael did to the Amorites. What's the Amori? We had ended the previous parsha. There were two giants. One's name was Sichon Melech Amori. Sichon, the king of the Amorites. And there was Og Melech HaBoshan. Og, the king of Boshan. And they were both killed. But who are they? They were the protectors of all the nations of Canaan. All the nations of Canaan, they paid protective fees, that no invading army should come into Canaan to put them into jeopardy. They were giants. Moshe originally sent a message to Sichon. He says, we would like to go through. So Og said, it's absurd. I mean, here I'm paid protection money to protect the nations of Canaan, and you want to come through to destroy Canaan? No way. You're not passing through. And Sichon goes to attack the Jewish people, and he's killed. Og is killed. So what happens when your only basis for protection is removed? You're vulnerable. You have to resort to something, because you realize if the Jews come in, they're going to wipe out the nations of Canaan. So Bolok is frantic. So Bolok had seen all that Yisrael had done to the Amorites. If they could destroy giants, they'll destroy us. Now it's interesting, there's a medrash, beautiful medrash. You know, Og and Sichon were giants. We find in last week's parsha, when it came to Og, Hashem says to Moshe, you have nothing to be fearful of. So the question is, what should be fearful? Moshe should be fearful. But he had to predicate the destruction of Og to tell the Moshe, you have nothing to be afraid of. I mean, Moshe is acting as God's agent. He split the sea, everything else. So why should he be fearful for Og? So Rashi cites the Midrash. Who was Og? First of all, why was Og called Og? Jay, you took Ulpan, no? When you went with NCSY to Israel as a teenager. So in Hebrew, the word Uga. What's an Uga? Like a cake. What happened when Lot was taken captive by the four mightiest kings? Why did they take Lot captive? Because they wanted to bait Avram that he should go into battle and they should kill him. That's why they took Lot into captivity, because they were opposed to Avram, that he was espousing monotheism, and they knew the man is a fanatic. He doesn't behave rationally. And if the four kings defeated the five kings, there's no question he's not going to survive the battle. And sure enough, he went to save Lot. But they didn't realize he was the victor, because who was his backer? Hashem was his backer. So who informed Avram that Lot was taken captive? You know who informed him? Og. Og informed Avram that his nephew was taken captive. And why was he called Og? Because at the time that he showed up at Avram's house, you know, Avram was the king of hospitality. Sari Main was always baking cakes and pita for the guests. So since she was in the middle of baking ugos, therefore he was called Og. Because what was the result of this going to battle? He defeated the four mightiest kings. And it was only due to Og that Og informed, because it's Vayova Apolit. The escapee came and informed Avram that his nephew was taken captive. So because of that, he was called Og. Could you imagine? He was called Og because Sari Menu was baking cakes, or these pita pies. How do we understand? The answer is, you pride yourself. Because, first of all, Og was an escapee from the five kings. He ran away, he was a refugee, he was saved. Miraculously, he ran away. Now, but what was his intention? Why did he tell Avram Avinu that Lot was taken captive. Because he wanted Avram should go to battle and be killed. This was his intent. And Sarah being the most beautiful woman, one of those beautiful women who ever lived, he would take her as his wife. So he had a sinister ulterior motive here. By having Avram go to battle, believing he would be killed, because he believed the same thing as the four kings. This will draw him into battle. Sarah Imenu will remain a widow. He'll take Sarah Imenu as a wife. Okay? But because ultimately Lot was saved and he actually serviced Avram Avinu, he merited to live hundreds of years. He lived until this moment. Moshe was concerned that the merit of facilitating the saving of Lot on behalf of Avram, for Avram, that merit stands still on his behalf, and therefore Moshe will not be able to destroy him. Hashem says, Al tiro. You have nothing to worry about. That merit is over, it's depleted, you will kill him. This is the dialogue between Hashem and Moshe Rabbeinu. Therefore, we have nothing to worry about. Although he had a sinister intent, but since factually speaking, he did service Avram Avinu, he did a service for the tzaddik, therefore he merited factually all the living hundreds of years. But why was it called Og? Og, he gained on both sides of the coin. If Avram is killed, he has his wife. Now he's the hero. The four kings, the mightiest kings, were destroyed. Who initially had fled from that battle. He was the escapee. They were destroyed because he informed Avram Avinu. You know something? So we're going to call you, Brownie, because you bought the brownies from the Girl Scouts. Therefore, you called him Brownie. He's called Og, cake or pancake or pita, because through that pita, when he arrived, he informed Avram Avinu, which destroyed the four kings, the four mightiest kings. Okay? This is the story with Og. Now, for Avram to destroy Og, for Moshe to destroy Og at Sichon, was it a simple feat? You say, what's the big deal? To orchestrate it. The Gemara tells us in Brachos that Og had taken a mountain that was 12 miles by 12 miles. And he put it on his head, and he was going to take this mountain and drop it on the Jewish people. So what does Hashem do? So when he carried this mountain, that's what kind of giant he was. He carried the mountain on his head. Hashem has ants eating away at the the area around his head. So therefore it was soft. All of a sudden the mountain falls down on his shoulders and his head is stuck in the mountain. He tries to pull the mountain off his head. Hashem causes his teeth to grow into the mountain like spikes. As much as he tries to pull the mountain off his head, he can't pull the mountain off his head. What does he do? He falls, and he breaks his neck. And he's killed. That's how Og dies. Okay? Now, to bring about the death of Og and Sichon, there were two giants. Was it comparable to the destruction of the Egyptian armies in the Yam Suf? So the Midrash says that factually speaking, after Og and Sichon were destroyed, Moshe should have said Shira. He should have said Shira. He didn't say Shira. Why? Because to destroy Og and Sichon, it was more difficult to destroy them than destroy the Egyptian armies. And although Moshe didn't say Shira, you know who said Shira? David Melch said Shira. Where does he say Shira? Because in Tehillim, we say this on Shabbos, Sichon melech Mori Kilam Chazdo, Og melech Aboshim Kilam Chazdo. That was the Shira that David HaMelech had said to make up for the Shira, to acknowledge the miracle of the destruction of Sichon and Og. That's the Medrash. It was more difficult to destroy Sichon and Og than Egypt. What does it mean it was more difficult? When we speak about physical destruction, there's a spiritual counterpart to what they represent. in terms of their representation of evil, Og and Sichon had a greater representation of evil than Mitzrayim. So to take them out, you had to have even greater merit. So therefore, behind the scenes, the miracles that were needed to bring about ultimately their destruction, the forces that had to be released were much greater than the forces that Hashem had to release to destroy the Egyptians at the Kriyas Yamsuf. And therefore, it should have been acknowledged. Moshe did not acknowledge this. David says, although Moshe didn't acknowledge it, I will acknowledge it by saying, Sichon melech Hamori lo kilam chasdo, Og melech Haboshem kilam chasdo. This is the Midrash. So now, Balak, you realize, was a sorcerer. As we'll see, he was a greater sorcerer than Bilam. He understood all the inner workings of the forces, the positive forces and the negative forces, and the battle of evil and good and evil. And he understood if the Jews could take out Og and Sichon, where it was more difficult to take them out than destroying Egypt, he understands he has a problem. He has a problem. And if he has a problem, if he doesn't nip it in the bud at this moment, it's over. All Canaan, all the nations of Canaan are going to be destroyed by the Jews. Therefore, he was frantic, and he only had one approach. And as it says, he did his research, and he tried to find out where does the power of the leader of the Jews lie. And they said, they did research in Midian. They said he was in Midian for many years. The power lies in his mouth. So they said, we will have somebody who's his equivalent, Bilam, his power lies in his mouth also. And that's the reason why he commissioned Bilam to curse the Jews, and because he understood it's now or never. Because if they could take out Sichon and Og, which are even more difficult than Mitzrayim, therefore, if it's not done, everything falls, everything will be destroyed.